Well, welcome back to the Steve Rob Show. Today, we're going to have some fun. Friends, we're going to be talking about me. We're talking about Steve Rob today. I've had so many requests from people asking me, Steve, could you please tell us how you got to retire at age 48? Well, 10 years has passed. Actually, a little bit more than 10 years last August. But let's make a vid out of this. And hopefully you can get something out of it. I know it's not for everybody. Not everybody's thinking about retiring, but and this won't apply for everybody. But let's have a little bit of a chat. Let's sit down and let's see what we can do here. Okay, so let's get to it right off the hop here. So how did I get to retire at age 48? Well, really, you have to go back and give somebody credit, and that would be my father. Guys, like the only reason why I got to retire at age 48 is because of the military. And you're wondering, what does this have to do with the military? Well, it does. Because I've ran my whole life off of, I would say, pretty much one saying that is quite common in the military. And it's failing to plan is planning to fail. And for most people, retirement is strictly planning. I know a lot of people that are going to be watching this video are not going to be able to use a lot of the things I'm talking about. I'm not going to be preaching to people, telling them how they should do anything. This is just what I did in my life, and I'll try to share some examples. But really, when it comes down to it, it's not really so much of how much you earn during your life. Guys, I know I made over $1.6 million from the time that I started to when I retired. And over a 30-year period, that may sound like a lot of money, but no, really, it's not that big of an amount. It depends on where you are in the world. I mean, some places in the world would consider me a hobo. And in other places in the world would consider you very well off. Well, I'm not. I'm just your average, Canadian, just scratching the way through life. But you have to plan. And guys, I'm not preaching to anybody telling you have to plan, but this is what I did. And I'd like to just start off by just saying, guys, like when we're all born and we all have the same thing in common, is we have no knowledge. So as you go through life, you gain knowledge from the time you're born. And what you decide to acquire in knowledge is completely up to you. But that does play a big part in being able to retire at a young age like I did. And guys, yes, I had a pension plan from General Motors. And I planned from the time that I started at age 18, I was going to retire at age 48. And it worked out for me, and I planned for it. But could I have done the same thing without the pension plan? I don't think I could have. I would have had to have a much higher paying job and handle my investments a little more on the riskier side than I have done. But some highlights of things that I always did from the time I started. My first real job was working at General Motors at 18. And what I always was taught by my father was put 10% away. And that's what I did, is I put 10% away every week out of my paycheck into an investment. The second thing I did was I had bought my first house at age 25. I paid off that house in a little over 9 years. Now, up here in Canada at the time, I don't know if any of these things apply anymore, but at the time, on your anniversary date every year, you could put up to 10% down on your mortgage. So within 10 years' time, I had paid off my house. And guys, I bought my house in 1984. And that's one of the most important items of being able to retire, is to own your own house. Yeah, like I can remember my utility bills when I first bought this house, and talking to my next door neighbor, and he said to me, you know what, my utility bills are more now than my mortgage ever was. And for me, it's the same. Like, I mean, my utility bills on my house are worth more than what the mortgage I ever paid when I first started, you know, making mortgage payments. Number 3 is use credit wisely and don't go into debt. I see a lot of people going into huge debts, and that can do havoc, you know. And part of being able to retire is not luck. I'm not one person to believe in luck. I believe a lot in karma. I believe a lot in, I guess, making good decisions. Making good decisions. I know people that constantly go and buy lottery tickets, you know, hoping that they're going to hit the jackpot and be able to retire. And for me, I don't believe in buying lottery tickets. I have bought them, you know, here and there once in a while, but, you know, no, I don't think that's a good strategy for, you know, for retiring. What else could I say? Tax planning. Tax planning and tax shelters, and you hear on the news people saying tax avoidance and all this kind of stuff. Guys, if it's legal, do it. That's my only recommendation, I would say. I'm trying to say this as delicately as I can. Try to acquire as much knowledge as possible to avoid paying taxes. And you know, when you have a paycheck from a corporation, you have to pay the taxes at the source. Now, when you get your paycheck, that's where the tax planning comes in. So, what I did, which was perfectly legal at the time, and I don't know if it's legal anymore, I don't know if it's allowed anymore, but guys, I never paid taxes on my income, and that's only the income from the money that I earned from my investments. Now, I was fortunate to have 2 children, and both them children are had trust accounts opened up at the bank. And when I got my money and I put my 10% into investments, I put it in their name in a trust account in a capital gain. And in Canada at the time, that is perfectly legal. Everybody, you know, that knows about it did it. And if you didn't, well, you know, that's just your misfortune. But there's 6 years difference between my 2 children. And each one of them, I had put money in their name until their 18th birthday. And on their 17th birthday, I took the money out of the funds. And, well, some of it was for their education. They both went to higher learning and university and college. But, yeah, during that time, you're allowed to acquire all the returns tax-free, because they really didn't have to pay any tax because they had no income. And that was one tax strategy that I used with both of them. And then later on, I had to actually, you know, move the money. And what I did was I moved, you know, the savings that I did have into, you know, RSP accounts and spousal RSP accounts. And up here in Canada, we got something called tax-free savings account, where you can put money in every year and invest it yourself, and you don't have to pay ever any tax on that money. I realize not all places in the world have this, but I think it's a great tax strategy, and that's part of it, is the strategy. And I want to use one example if I can. I know this is going to be a long video, but when I used to go to work every day, I brought a lunch pail, I brought a thermos, I packed myself up a nice, you know, bun with some meat in it, and I packed my own lunch, and I went off to work. But a lot of my friends didn't. And what they did was, they went and got 2 or 3 coffees a day from the cafeteria, and they bought their lunch there. Well, of course, most of the time they brought their breakfast there too, and on afternoon shifts it was dinners and that kind of stuff. And guys, it adds up. Just for an example, you know, even back then, the average person going to the cafeteria for the day would spend $10 a day going to the cafeteria. And I always worked a minimum of 300 days a year. And guys, that's part of it. You have to put in a lot of time. Like I lived a lot of time, you know, working at the assembly line at General Motors. And I worked a lot of shifts, a lot of double shifts. I worked a lot of time there. And in 300 days, you know, there's $3,000 over, you know, without increasing, you know, the amount, we're talking $90,000 in 30 years' time. And for me, I figure I spend at the most $2 a day. So that would work out to 1/5, $18,000. So I spent about $18,000 on lunches going to work, and I figure I saved $72,000. So there's $72,000 for bringing your lunch to work. And that's the kind of stuff that I've done in my life. You know, when they say failing to plan is planning to fail, it's true. And you know, when a lot of people, you know, oh, it's only 10 bucks here, only 10 bucks there, and this kind of stuff. Guys, I'm telling you what, $72,000 goes a long way in 30 years' time when you invest it in, well, I'm not going to talk about investments because, you know, I don't think it's fair to talk about investments and kind of make people think that they should invest in some, you know, vehicles where they shouldn't. But besides that, yeah, you pretty well have to have your financial system in place. And by the time you're getting ready to retire, you really can't have a lot of debt, and you have to know your numbers. I have friends of mine that are still working on the assembly line at General Motors, and they're eligible for the pension a long time ago. But they just don't have, I guess, the ability to pay their bills with their pension because they're in debt. A lot of these fellas have gone through more than one marriage, and that's very expensive to do. That's like starting life all over again. I know a lot of you guys have as well. So, you know, it's not so easy doing it. And, you know, when it comes down to it, to this day, through financial tax planning, even on my investments today, I still do not pay taxes. I don't want to sound like Donald Trump, guys. I mean, the guy is a multi-billionaire, but I'm no Donald Trump. I'm not a rich guy. But it's knowledge. As far as I'm concerned, it's just knowledge. You have to really think about, you know, what you're doing and what you want to accomplish. A lot of people will spend an enormous amount of time trying to figure out some things in life that really, in the end of it, you know, really don't mean that much. But when it comes to financial matters, it's probably best to, you know, to really think about, you know, what's going on here and how you can actually keep the money that you earn. And that's probably the hardest part, is keeping the money that you earn. I realize everybody has to have, you know, you have to have a life. You have to, you know, do stuff. I mean, I've gone on vacations and, you know, I don't, you know, guys, like, I hate the word, use the analogy of a hobo, but I haven't gone through my whole life as being some kind of a cheapskate either. But you have to really, I really don't know what you would call it, but it's just really, when it comes down to it, a lot of it is common sense. And most of the people that I know, guys, most of the people that I know, they know exactly how much they make. You know, if you could ask them how much they make, they know exactly how much they make. But they don't have a clue how much they're spending. A lot of them do not have a clue how much they're spending. I mean, I hate to sound like a little bit of like a preachy here thing, but that's the biggest downfall that I find, is a lot of people don't really realize how much they spend on stuff. And I've told people before, you know, that have gone into really financial, you know, despair. I said, get yourself a little notepad, carry it around with you, and every time you go to spend something, I don't care what it is, you write it down in the notepad. And at the end of every day, you look at that notepad. And you know, that is a good little tip, you know, to go by. So you could actually see, you know, where this money is just filtering out all over the place. So now that I've been retired 10 years, my pension check has not changed from the time I retired. It is not indexed to inflation. I don't get increases. I don't get nothing. So you really have to be able to survive on your pension check and supplement your income as well with extra. Because you know what? When it comes down to it, It's a very hard decision for a lot of people to make to retire, and too many people are forced into retirement as they get older and just don't have the ability to sustain the same lifestyle as they did prior. So, you know, not everybody is going to be fortunate, you know, to get themselves a really good, you know, paying job. On the other hand, you know, there's a lot of people that have, you know, through no fault of their own, have been, you know, just really unfortunate. You know, they've come across, you know, life's downfalls. You know, like I have friends of mine, you know, even on YouTube that have been involved in, you know, horrific car accidents and this kind of stuff. And, you know, you just can't think about retirement when, you know, you're disabled or, you know, this kind of stuff. And, you know, life is not easy. Life is very tough. And it's not everybody that's fortunate, you know, to be able to retire at age 48. So there is no magic to being retired at age 48. To me, if you have the opportunity to do it, I say do it. And then a lot of people have said to me, well, do you have a part-time job? Do you do it? Well, the only thing I do really is I do some jobs, you know, once in a while, you know, working for friends, you know, and light construction and that kind of stuff, just puttering around doing stuff. Or for me, my biggest hobby is YouTube. And I enjoy it. And guys, I'm very fortunate. And I'm very fortunate that, you know, I was instructed as a small little child, you know, to, I would say, kind of, you know, be modeled, you know, from, you know, your father to really have this embedded in your head about planning. Guys, you would not believe the stuff that I do with planning. I mean, I don't show a lot of the stuff on my channel. But if you want to talk about somebody who's like a planning maniac, that would be me. I plan everything out in life. I realize a lot of people don't do that and they may have a hard time understanding it. Some people call it OCD and this kind of thing. But for me, it just comes natural now. And, you know, I don't know what to say. But that's about it. And I just thought I'd touch on the subject today. And I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas coming up. And I've got my pole here for the Festivus celebration. And guys, I'm having a ball doing this YouTube. It's been a lot of fun. You know, I've had a terrific time meeting, you know, just terrific people. And I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday and a Happy New Year. And if you haven't seen this channel before, you're welcome to subscribe. I mean, this is going to probably be a long vid. I don't know how long it is, but the clock on the wall there says it's long. But okay, guys, come back again, and I hope I've answered all your questions. Let's come back again, and let's have some more fun. See you next year.